joining us on the Mercedes-Benz Vans phone line to discuss everything going on in the association is senior NBA writer from ESPN, Ramona Shelburne. How you doing, Ramona?
Hey, I'm good. How are you, Rich?
I'm great. We were talking about you the other day because as we went out the door, we saw the news involving the television show that's going to be made out of your fantastic podcast about the Clippers and Donald Sterling, the Donald Sterling tapes. That Ed O'Neill is playing Donald Sterling.
Yeah. How much do you love that cast?
I mean, my gosh, that is just Al Bundy and Jay Pritchett as Donald Sterling is just, it's jarring to me. But that's pretty cool.
You know what was interesting? It was like, I know the process that we went through to get there.
Right.
And I remember, you hear different names, you hear this, and when they said, I never in a million years thought of that myself, right? Sure. When I was doing the podcast or doing the, covering this and envisioning this should be a movie or a scripted series one day, I never would have thought Ed O'Neill, right?
Right.
And then when they said it to me, I was like, oh, that could totally work. That's great.
Yeah.
Right? And it was one of those kind of castings. And I'm really excited about it because I'm a big Breaking Bad person, right?
Yes.
So I think he's got a lot more than Al Bundy to him. You probably just know, a lot of people know that. He's like a theater actor. He's got a lot in him, and he sort of has this Cranston potential to me in that, the Walter White role. There's this could be a really good role for him, and I think I'm excited.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's kind of, because usually when you think Donald Sterling, the some of the names Dustin Hoffman, right, or some other those kind of names, Jack Nicholson or something. But this is a really inspired cast. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, he was on the show years ago. He's been on a couple times, Ed O'Neill, and he said he was discovered for the Al Bundy role coming off of playing Lenny of Mice and Men. He's a serious thespian, no question about that. And also, who would look at John C. Reilly and say that's Jerry Buss, right? So you never.
He was amazing in that role.
Absolutely. Yeah. So who else are you targeting for, or have already cast for this show, Ramona?
So the other one is Lawrence Fishburne is going to play Doc Rivers, and that's you need some, the role that'll probably be the breakout role, right? The one who's, going to be nominated for awards, I think is probably that role, right? It's
okay.
Doc Rivers' role. So that's, I think Lawrence was the first big name to sign on. And he really wanted that role. I think he's going to be great. He's got a lot of gravitas, which I'm wondering how he's going to get the raps, though. You going to get that Doc Rivers raspy voice? I don't know. That's a tough one. Or do you just kind of play it straight, but, and then for Shelley Sterling, that was always the role that I was, when I'm a woman, okay? So
yes.
In this industry, you're always thinking about, who would play this role, and that was always the storyline I was drawn to. It was actually the character that made me think this should be more than just a story, but it could be a drama, which is here's this woman after 60 years of marriage to this guy where she puts up with a lot of stuff, and she puts with philandering and poor behavior and racist stuff and all this awful behavior. After 60 years of marriage, this tape comes out and all this, everything goes wrong. And she finally not only sells the team out from under him, but gets him mentally incapacitated in order to do so. And I'm like, here's this little old lady that no one would have ever expected. She's kind of seen as a sweet old lady. And she kind of had to, I don't know if you want to say she tricked him into this, but she got him to go see two doctors who then, diagnosed him with mentally incapacitated to manage the family finances. I'm like, that was a boss move. Who thought she had that in her? And that was always the character I was drawn to. I was like, the ones you never see coming, right? And I just thought, what a great role for an older actress. What a great role. There's not so many of those kind of roles. It reminded me of that, I don't know if you ever saw that Woody Allen movie, with Cate Blanchett, where her husband's the hedge fund manager, and she kind of has to change, she kind of has to figure out what to do after her life, changes. It's called Blue Jasmine, right? Kind of reminded me of that kind of a role. And I was like, man, there's so many great actresses who are in their 70s and 80s who would just love that role. So we ended up going with Jackie Weaver, who you probably know from Silver Linings Playbook, right? She's in the new Mark Wahlberg movie. So I think she's going to be amazing.
Fantastic. And by the way, and also keeping your own center court seats too. She's still.
Yeah. Although I haven't seen her in too many games lately. She kept her seats, but she hasn't gone as much the last 2 years.
Right.
I think. It's been a distance there.
So when does this come out? When does this come out on FX?
Sometime next year.
Fantastic.
I think we're going to shoot later on this year, and then it comes out next year. Whenever that is.
Sure.
I don't know the Hollywood game like you guys do, right?
You're right. Well,
2023-ish. Right?
Congrats on all that.
How long it takes to be good. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Congrats on all that. Ramona Shelburne, of course, right here on the Rich Eisen Show. As for the actual drama playing out here in Los Angeles with the Lakers, where are they? Because, Mike Brown being named from the Warriors staff to fill the Sacramento Kings spot. Where are the Lakers right now in their coaching search, best you can tell, Ramona?
So this would be the right way to put it. They are taking their sweet time.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's funny. I actually had brought up Mike Brown's name earlier, like when I was talking to somebody with the Lakers, like, hey, would you guys think about Mike Brown? I mean, he's exactly kind of what you need, somebody who knows how to coach LeBron, defensive-minded, and somebody, and I caught myself, right? Like, I hate to say it, but I was like, oh, you already did that. That's right. Yeah. Mike was already the Laker coach.
Right.
And then I brought up Mike D'Antoni. I was like, yeah, that would be great, too. It really unlocked the offense. They already did that, too. Yeah. And I shouldn't laugh because, it kind of speaks to how many coaches they've gone through since Phil Jackson left, right? I mean, there just really hasn't been a lot of consistency. And I know in talking to Jeannie Buss and her organizational philosophy, and maybe even if you watch Winning Time, I don't know, if you've been watching that, like the Lakers have historically been a team that keeps coaches for a long time. They find somebody and they hold on to them for a decade, the whole Winning Time season 1 is obviously the Jack McKinney, Paul Westhead thing. But then once Pat Riley takes over, I mean, he holds that job for a while, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with Phil Jackson. He was the man, and so it's just hard to find somebody to replace somebody with that kind of status and legendary gravitas, I guess you want to use that word. But I don't know. I don't know if they know what they're looking for, to be honest. I think they're kind of surveying the field, talking to a bunch of people. Some of them are assistants. Some of them are guys who've been coaches before. They're just doing Zooms right now, not even in person. They don't seem to have any sense of urgency about this. Their current staff, outside of Frank Vogel, is still under contract and working and helping with the draft process. I don't think they're in any hurry. And some of that is maybe just waiting to see what else happens in the playoffs and in the NBA, who might be available. But they really don't have any competition. There's only like a couple of jobs open this year. Sacramento filled theirs, and they went with Mike Brown, who the Lakers, again, had already been there, done that, right? And he'd already been there, done that. So the other one is Charlotte. I think, Charlotte has a couple of options. Mike D'Antoni seems like he's in a good spot for that job. Again, been there, done that. And so the Lakers really have their pick.
So if you were, though, a coach being wooed by the Lakers, what would you ask them? Because it seems to me, I would want to interview the Lakers as much as vice versa.
Absolutely.
Right? So
and that is, you're right, 100%. And I don't know if that's going to help you, though.
Why? Because you might not get an answer because they don't know either, or they don't want to be interviewed as much as the other way around, right?
Both. I mean, look, Frank Vogel was the guy who they ended up with. They did a good job. I mean, he won a championship, and I think people forget he had a really good staff that first year. That was something that they prioritized, and it was seen as sort of a negative for the organization, like, oh, the organization wants to help you choose your staff. Like, very few coaches want to allow that. They want their own guys. They want to build their own team, et cetera. But the Lakers, felt really strongly that they wanted to put an all-star staff together. And, that first year with Frank Vogel, he had 3 or 4 guys who had been head coaches in the league before on that staff. And they sort of slowly, Jason Kidd went to Dallas. Lionel Hollins was sort of unceremoniously let go. Or bumped from the bench or whatever it is, and the staff has seen some attrition over the last couple of years. And, as much as you might knock the Lakers for saying, okay, what good coach worth his salt's going to let you pick a bunch of guys on his staff, it did work the first year, and it was good. It was good for them. So I think they're going to end up with somebody who will allow that. I think that's something that seems important to them, unless somebody really blows them away and they just want to give them the keys. But I can't think of anybody who would have that kind of leverage right now, because so many great young coaches were hired last year. There was so many of the great names that you hear about who would have the leverage or the ability to pull off something like that. They were all hired. They had a lot of openings last year, so there's just not as many candidates that you would think in that role.
Ramona Shelburne here on the Rich Eisen Show. Who is your best guess right now to make the NBA Finals? It looks like we could have a bunch of 2-2 series, although Morant being out tonight makes me think that would be a very tall order for them to even that series up at 2 apiece. But what do you think right now?
Yeah, so I like the Warriors in the West, and I still think I like the Bucks in the East. Just there's something about having won a championship and especially getting that Game 3 that was really persuasive to me. The way they came back in that game against Boston there. I know the Bucks have blown leads before, but they also, when they blew those leads, were not defending champions. So I all year long, I just kind of thought Milwaukee was going to do it again. In the West, I still think it's going to be Phoenix and Golden State. And there's just a part of me that when they played straight up, so there was only 1 or 2 games where they played straight up where all their guys were healthy. Mm-hmm. And I thought the Warriors looked better in those games. The other games where Phoenix, the Warriors had some injuries or whatever it was, Phoenix beat them pretty badly. But I just, there's something about those guys having been to the finals before, knowing what it takes in the playoffs, slight edge the Warriors if that ends up being the matchup.
Ramona, thanks for the call. Congrats on all the great castings for your show. Let's stay in touch. And
I'll let you know when we get our Vistiviano. That's going to be a good one. I know some of the names you're talking to right now. That's my favorite one too. I'm like, who are we going to get to play V? There's a good role.
That would be, absolutely. Who's playing?
Let's cast it right now.
We could cast it, right? Who's going to play Chris Paul? I mean, I imagine that would be a very fascinating casting as well.
Those are some good ones.
I'm sure. Best of luck with that. Let's stay in touch. I'll call you soon. Thanks again, Ramona.
Sounds good. Thanks, Rich.
You got it. That's Ramona Shelburne from ESPN right here on the Rich Eisen Show. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.